What's up guys, it's MTG for you. Today we're going into the ladder with a domain control deck, revolving our Swings of Clear Skies. Games are really cool, I really like this deck, it's also pretty powerful. So hope you guys enjoy the games, and if you want to see the deck tech, stay until the end of the video where I go into depth for this deck, or you can just skip forward if you want to see the deck tech first. Anyway, enjoy the video and I see you guys soon.
When I win, you're telling me what you know about the
I've always hated crowds.
Sorry, I'm not interested in dying today. Don't overthink things.
Highways are not for the weak.
What's up guys, MTG Matt for you. So today I want to present to you a domain based deck. So domain is this new returning mechanic from Dominaria United, and I want to take Sphinx of Clear Skies as an example for how this works, because this right here is also the main card that is driving this whole deck, and I'm really pleased with the result, and I think it's a really juicy deck. So Sphinx of Clear Skies is a 5-mana 5/5, swings in blue with flying in War 2, and it's got domain. So it says domain basically counts the number of basic land types you have in, that is, you know, mountain, island, forest, swamp, and plains. And the more of those basic land types you have, the bigger of a benefit cards with domain give you. So in the case of Sphinx of Clear Skies, it says whenever Sphinx of Clear Skies deals common damage to a player, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands and control. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put one pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So this is a phenomenal card for a control based deck. First of all, Sphinx is protecting itself through the War 2, it's evasive through the flying, right? It's also good body, 5-mana 5/5. And the domain effect is really powerful. If you have all 5 basic land types, and this hits your opponent gets to look at top 5 cards of your library, and has to separate those into 2 piles, and you just pick any one that suits you better, right? And when this starts connecting, your hand fills up with cards, like 2-3 extra cards every turn, and you always get the best, at least the one best card from those top 5, because sure, your opponent can put 4 cards in one pile and 1 card in the other pile, but if this other 1 card is the 1 card you want, you just pick that and you don't care about the other 4. So Sphinx of Clear Skies, once you've established her on the board, she just gives you basically infinite fuel and starts winning the game for you by herself. So that's our main win condition. This is a control deck built around maximizing domain value. And the base for our deck is basically a band shell with a splash of black. And to go deeper into this domain idea, so we got Sphinx of Clear Skies, which is our major payoff. The second biggest payoff is Leyline Binding, which is an absolutely phenomenal card. This card is so insane. 6-mana enchantment with flash, very important. Has domain. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type on lands you control. And then it's an exile effect for any non-permanent until Leyline Binding leaves the battlefield. This card is insane. So if you play it in a deck like this, which can get your 5 basic land types very consistently, very early, you'll just be playing this for 1 mana at instant speed. And it's just insane. 1 mana, instant speed, exile any non-land permanent on the board is fantastic. So very powerful card, and I think Leyline Binding is really, maybe going forward in the standard that we're going to be in, it's gonna be one of those cards which, if you want to build a control deck, you're more or less like forced to go domain, right? Because this card is just so good if you have all 5 basic land types, and it's rather easy to get there because of the Triumph lands we have. Another payoff we have, and last payoff basically, is Herd Migration as a 4/7-mana sorcerer in green. Has domain, create a 3/3 green beast creature token for each basic land type on lands you control. And for 1 in the green you can discard it and search your library for a basic land card, put it into your hand, and then you also gain 3 life. So Herd Migration is a great enabler for the domain decks, because early on for 2 mana you can just discard it, go grab a basic land that you don't have yet to build up your domain count, and also gains 3 life, which is very nice against aggro style decks. But then later in the game, this is also a secondary win condition, right? Because late in the game, you got 7, 8, 9 mana, which is pretty normal for this deck to get there. You might be like in a value war with your opponent, right? Your opponent's running out of cards. you play this for 7 mana and you put 15 power on the board, and if your opponent can't deal with it, well, you got a 15-15 army that's hitting your opponent's face. So this is your secondary win condition. And these 3 cards here are our domain payouts. And as you can see, this is also basically the reason why we're a banned shell. So the rest of the deck is real pure control with some spicy new cards we got from Dominaria United. And it's all just trying to enable the deck. So first of all, let's look at card draw. We run 4 copies of Memory Deluge, which is our main engine for never running out of cards, because this is a control deck that in the early game can, you know, control the game by cheaply removing your opponent's stuff. But if you're always going like 1-for-1 with cheap removal, you run out of cards eventually. So this is where the 4 copies of Memory Deluge come in. At 4 mana at instant speed, this gives you a big card selection, and later you can also cast it for 7 mana. Then we got 2 new cards for more cheaper card draw. We got 4 copies of Impulse, really good new common, 1 in the blue. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this card is really there to, on turn 2, like find our 3rd land or get that early removal spell that we need. And later in the game, it can really specifically fish for specific cards that we want for the given situation. And, you know, 2 mana, look at 4 cards, get the best of them. It's a pretty good spell. The second cheap card draw spell we have, which is also new, is Joint Exploration, 2 mana instant, 1 blue, and you can kill it for 1 green. Scry 2, then draw a card. If the spell was kicked, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So we can play this card again at 2 mana, just like Impulse, to really make sure that we hit our land drop and, you know, make sure that we basically survive the early game and just get there with our land drops and our removal. But then we can also play this for 3 mana and draw a card and also put a land card on the battlefield, which is especially good in this deck because we run a total of 10 Triumphs that will always enter the battlefield tapped. So if you put one of those Triumphs on the battlefield with Joint Exploration, you basically kind of surpass the downside of those Triumphs going onto the battlefield tapped, because you're going to do this at instant speed, and then on your turn you're gonna untap with all your lands, including the Triumph you just put onto the battlefield. So Joint Exploration has worked really well for me, and there's also like this play pattern that comes up from time to time. It's rather inconsistent, but can happen. Then turn 3 you play this kicked, put a 4th land on the board, and then on turn 4 you put a 5th land onto the board and put down your Swings of Clear Skies, which against aggressive style decks like Mono Red, for example, they often just can't deal with the swings because they only got damage-based removal, and the swings is a 5/5 with War 2, so it's very hard for them to really kill the swings. So that's just some like small play pattern that can occur. So this right here is our card draw. Basically we have 11 cards for pure card draw, plus the swings, which also draws us a ton of cards. Then let's talk removal. We run 3 copies of Fateful Absence. Really good in this meta right now because there are a lot of Planeswalkers running around, especially Liliana. And the thing about Liliana is that she's a 3-mana Planeswalker, so you want to have early answers. And Fateful Absence is just 2 mana, get rid of Liliana. Sure, you give them a clue token so they can draw an additional card. But in the early games, really it's about just getting rid of those early threats so you can get to your later game plan to win the game. So 3 copies of Fateful Absence. Then we run 3 copies of Tear Asunder. What we're basically doing with this deck, we're really abusing the fact that we have access to 4 colors. So we can be really picky about our removal spell and pick the best from each color. And I think Tear Asunder is one of the best instant speed removal spells we have now in standard. So 1 on green instant with kicker 1 on black, exile target artifact or enchantment. That by itself will come up in games, right? You will just occasionally remove an artifact enchantment for 1 on the green, but then when you kick it you can just exile any null and permanent instead. The exile effect is really important. You permanently get rid of those underdogs, tenacious underdogs, for example, right? So they can't come back from the graveyard. But also very important, you just get rid of all those planeswalkers. So 3 copies of Terra Thunder to really just get rid of anything. And then finally, as the board wipe option, I was just speaking of, we can just pick the best from each color. So we run 2 copies of the Midrange Massacre, because this is a deck where, you know, we're going late. We will eventually have a lot of mana, so Midrange Massacre is the best board wipe in that scenario. 2 copies are really good to help us stabilize and just get there. And then finally, the thing that also really holds the deck together is 4 copies of Negate. Again, we live in a meta where Negate is so good because of those 3 mana planeswalkers, but also because the way you're going to play this deck is you're most likely not going to play your Sphinx of Clear Skies on turn 5, because we live in a meta with Liliana of the Veil and Invoke Despair, which are both sacrifice creature effects, and we rarely have more than 1 creature on the board unless you play Herd Migration. So Invoke Despair and Liliana are perfect answers to our Sphinx. So what you want to do is you want to play Sphinx of Clear Skies on with 7 mana, so that you can play with 5 mana, have 2 mana open for Negate. And this is where you basically get the ball rolling and gonna start winning the game because you play your Sphinx. Your opponent will have a hard time killing it with direct removal spells because of the War 2. So then if your opponent tries to play Liliana or Invoke Despair, you negate it. And then you start, you know, attacking with the Sphinx, getting more and more cards, and this way win the game. And yeah, speaking of the land base, we are a banned color base, right? So we run 4 copies of Sparrow's Headquarters, and then for the domain, what we need also need swamps and mountains, but we only use also black mana in the Midrange Massacre and Terra Thunder. So because of that, I chose to put in 4 Xenos Launch and 2 Raffine's Tower in the deck and completely ignore the Riveteer, like the Naya Triome, because the Naya Triome is not really giving us what we're looking for. So the Xandos Launch will give us the mountains, right? To give us all 5 basic land types eventually. And then Raffine's Tower can also give us swarms and blue and white. So this is basically my reasoning why I got these triumphs. And then the rest of the deck is just untapped lands. We run at least 1 basic land type of each, so we can fish it with Herd Migration. That's why we run a single mountain. And then, notably, we run all the Neon Dynasty lands for white, black, green, and blue in Eigantia, Seat of the Empire, Ottawa, Takenuma, and Boseiju, Who Endures. And that's the deck. Really proud of this deck. It performed really well for me in Platinum. I think it's a really powerful control deck, and I mean, we're so early in the new standard, but it really gets me thinking in that because of stuff like Leyline Binding and also Sphinx of Clear Skies, these are so huge payoffs for going domain. I really wonder if it even makes sense to attempt building a control deck that has less colors, right? Because if you go a little further with this deck idea, and I'll be finishing here in a moment, but you can just take this basic deck idea and you still have all access to all 5 colors, right? You can also just like try out putting Kami Wars in here and see how this works, right? It's just, you can take this idea in a lot of directions. Anyway, I start rambling now. Hope you guys enjoyed the games, and I see you guys soon.